name is Anne, welcome to another video. So in today's video, I'm going to go through my top tips for someone traveling to Japan for the first time. Now recently, my husband and I just got back from Japan from our honeymoon, and while we were planning our trip, it was all a bit overwhelming. There's so much to cover, Japan is so big, and we did a lot of research. I watched a lot of videos to try and find tips, but I didn't get some of these tips that I've got to share with you today, and I really would have loved to know this before I went. So I thought I'd do this video and share with you everything that I picked up and all the top tips that I would have advised myself. And I hope that this helps someone. So without further ado, let's just get straight into the video. So I wrote this down. So my top tip number one is make sure that you plan the trip before you go. Now, Japan is such a popular destination and a lot of the great things to do there are very popular. So things get sold out and booked out really early in advance. So my number one tip would be to plan your trip in advance. And if there's anything that you really want to do, any excursions you'd really like to go on, you need to make sure that you've booked it, or if it doesn't need booking, then you need to find that out. Because there was a few things that we did want to do that we weren't able to because we started looking a month in advance, but that was still not early enough. So if you know that you're planning a trip to Japan, start as early as you can, finding out what you want to do there and then seeing which things might need booking. I will be making a separate video on my top things to do in Japan, so watch out for that one. You also need to plan before you go, because if there's anything that you need for travel, like you might need a JR pass, which I'm going to get onto, you will need to book that in advance. So make sure you plan your trip, plan your route, and plan which cities you want to go to before you actually set off. Tip number two is to get a JR pass if you're planning to travel to more than 2 cities in Japan. Now the typical first timer to Japan will you typically go to Tokyo, then to Kyoto, and then to Osaka. And if you're lucky, you can fit in a few other places along the way. But if you're traveling to those places, you're most likely going to want to get a bullet train to get there quickly. And these can be very expensive. However, the JR pass is a train pass, which gives you unlimited access to trains, including bullet trains on the JR line. It is such a fantastic deal, and it's only available to tourists traveling to Japan. So if you're going to take more than one bullet train, then you've already recouped your costs in getting a JR pass. So I'd highly recommend getting a JR pass if you're traveling to more than 2 cities in order to get your money's worth. If you're only staying in Tokyo, I wouldn't probably recommend getting a JR pass, just because you're not getting that value for your money. It's the bullet trains and the long journeys that are expensive. Traveling within Tokyo is not too expensive. If you are getting your JR pass, you need to make sure that you're getting that in advance to travel. So you usually have to book your JR pass online, and you receive a voucher in the post. So you need to order it in enough time that you can receive this voucher in the post. And then when you arrive in Japan, you can exchange that voucher for your actual physical JR pass. So you need to make sure you're ordering your JR pass at least, I would say, 2 weeks in advance in case of any delays. I remember when I was researching this trip to Tokyo, I was so stressed out trying to figure out how are you supposed to book these Shinkansen tickets. Everyone's videos is mentioning how you can book these Shinkansens, bullet trains, but I had no idea how I was supposed to book them. So I hope this helps you out. You can book them all when you pick up that JR pass in Tokyo, and you can do that both in the Narita airport and in the Haneda airport. So it's important to bear that in mind. I'm going to do a separate video on how to travel around in Japan so that this video doesn't drag on and on and on. Make sure you tune into that if you want to figure out how to actually travel around when you're in Japan. My next tip is to definitely ask for help if you're stuck. The staff are so helpful and they always want to help you out. So don't be confused and stuck on your own. Even if they don't speak very good English, people there are so friendly and so nice, and they will always want to help you. Tip number 3 is when you're booking your hotels, make sure that you are booking somewhere near to a train station. So I was so overwhelmed booking hotels because there are so many, even within an area. So if you decide you want to stay in Shinjuku or where in Shinjuku should you stay. It's so big and there is so much choice and it's very overwhelming. So I would recommend just stay near a train station. You cannot go wrong if you're staying near a train station. So if you're staying in Shinjuku, for example, you want to stay near Shinjuku Station. If you're staying in Shibuya, you want to stay near Shibuya Station. And if you can't at all, if you don't know where to stay at all in Tokyo, I'll always recommend staying near Tokyo Station. That was what we did because I was so overwhelmed and it worked out so well. Tokyo is very big and you just need to be able to stay somewhere where you can access all the different parts really easily. Tip number 4 would be to make sure you have some kind of Wi-Fi while you're in Japan. So we thought about this in advance and we ordered a pocket Wi-Fi with our JR Pass. If you'd like to know where I ordered my JR Pass from, you can just put it in the comments and I'll send you. It's just one of the websites that they have, but I know it's hard to find a reputable website. But we did that and that got us a bit of a discount on our pocket Wi-Fi. But if you are not getting a JR Pass or you just don't want to get the pocket Wi-Fi in advance, you can still pick it up at the airport. So when we ordered our pocket Wi-Fi in advance, we just got an access code and then when we got to the airport, you would pick up the pocket Wi-Fi from the airport. So you can still do that even without a booking. It's just important to think about that because if you're traveling around Tokyo or Japan in general and you don't speak Japanese, you're going to have to know where to get the train, which train to get, and you all need to search all that on your phone. So yeah, having Wi-Fi is absolutely essential and we would not have been able to survive the trip without it. And that leads me to tip number 5, which is to take a battery pack with you for your phone. So I'm very organized. I'd thought of everything. None of the videos or the advice that we'd seen before we traveled had told us to take a spare battery pack. And we had to actually end up buying one while we were in Tokyo, which is such a waste because we already have some at home. So remember to pack your battery pack. Because you're using your phone to travel around and it's so big, there's so much to do, our phones were dying really quickly and those pocket Wi-Fis really drain your battery. And you're taking loads of photos because you're on holiday, so yes, definitely take your battery pack, you won't regret it. Tip number 6, if you're traveling from Tokyo to another city towards the south, I think, so that would be if you're going from Tokyo to Osaka or Tokyo to Kyoto, you need to make sure that when you're on the bullet train, you sit on the Mount Fuji side of the train. So when you're going towards Osaka or Kyoto, that will be on the right side of the train, and when you're coming back, it'll be on the left side of the train. On a clear day, you can see Mount Fuji from the bullet train and it's really amazing. When we traveled, Mount Fuji was being a little bit shy, so we didn't see the full thing. It's still amazing to see and I would definitely recommend sitting on that side of the train just to experience that. And if you're lucky, you'll get it on a clear day and you'll be able to see Mount Fuji. Tip number 7 is when you arrive at the airport, try and get the airport limousine or the bus to your hotel. The JR train was not working the day that we arrived in Japan, so we ended up getting the shuttle bus or the airport limousine, and it was so cheap and they could easily store all our luggages and it was really smooth and easy right outside of the airport entrance. Whereas with the trains, it's really cumbersome if you have a lot of bags on the trains. It can be quite stressful. So actually I think if you're just arriving, it's really good to just make sure you take the bus and keep all your bags there and you can just relax. Another tip related to this is to use luggage delivery services if you need to, and also to bear in mind that in the train stations there are places that you can store your luggage. So if you're going somewhere, say just for one day, for example, if you wanted to go to Nara Deer Park but from there you were going somewhere else, you could just leave your bags at the train station. They have these little coin lockers where you can lock your luggage away and you can be free to go and do whatever you want to Nara and then come back, and when you're getting the train out of there, you can get your cases and carry on with your journey. So utilize them if you need to, or you can use the luggage delivery services and they just take your luggage and take it straight to the hotel. We didn't personally do that. I kind of like my luggage to be with me. I don't want to go missing or anything. I'm sure it's perfectly good and it works, so utilize that if you need to, but we just didn't personally use it. Number 8 is to bear in mind that it's a no tipping culture, so that's really good. You don't need to tip everywhere you go. We did hear that this could be a little bit disrespectful if you tip. We don't know that for sure, so I would just say don't tip. You're not expected to tip. Even though the service is absolutely fantastic, you just don't tip there. There's no tipping culture, and that is really refreshing coming from England. We don't have a big tipping culture because we have really had a culture shock when we went to Hawaii and there was all the tipping over there. Part 2 of this tip is to bring with you some cash. Now, we actually had a travel card, which was like a prepaid travel card. So that ended up being just as good as having cash because a lot of places accepted that. But depending on which card you have, a lot of places don't actually accept cards and they quite like cash. So make sure you have cash on you at all times while you're traveling around Japan. Also, make sure you're carrying your passport with you, especially if you have a JR pass. Tip number 9 is to pack your patience. We were not expecting so many queues when we were in Japan. Everything is a queue. And in their defense, the queues all move very quickly, but there's so many queues, so make sure you pack your patience. Everyone is very polite there. No one pushes in front of each other in the queue. It's all very civilized, so you don't want to go and be like trying to push in. That is not appropriate etiquette while you're over there. You just need to bring your patience and just wait in the queue and know that it's gonna move really quickly. Tip number 10 is about etiquette. So the number one thing with the etiquette in Japan that we found is that everyone is very civilized and quiet. So if you're in a public place, you wouldn't be making lots of noise. If you're on the train, you'd be very quiet. If you're on the bus, you'd be very quiet. Everything is very calm and mellow. Of course, if you're in a bar or something, that's very different. But while you're in public places, like a train, like a bus stop, anything like that, make sure that you keep a normal tone. You don't start shouting, and it's not really seen as respectful, and everyone's just going to look at you really awkwardly. So try and avoid overly loud talking if you can. Another etiquette tip is to dress modestly. We didn't see anyone in like crop tops or hot pants. Everyone in Japan dresses quite elegantly and modestly. So if you don't want to feel awkward and out of place, I would recommend you dress semi-modestly and not wear anything overly revealing. I didn't notice anyone wearing anything very revealing while I was out there. I was just looking back at my list of tips and I completely skipped one out, and it's very important, and that was that there are no bins. There are no bins at all when you're around Japan. We really struggle to find bins like in the streets. Usually in the UK, in the streets there's bins everywhere, places to throw things away. But that was not the same at all when we were in Japan. We'd have to keep hold of our rubbish all day, and I usually only had a small bag, so that was really inconvenient. So what you need to bear in mind is that there's not going to be many bins, so make sure if you buy something in a 7-Eleven, the snacks are really nice there, make sure you eat it there and get rid of the rubbish there, so you're not walking around for ages with the rubbish in your hands. So you need to just either carry around a plastic bag with you so you can keep your rubbish on you until you can find a bin somewhere, or just throw your rubbish away. Like if you're on the train, for example, there'll be a bin on the train. There will be bins, in like 7-Elevens, in the hotels there are, but not just generally around the streets, which we were not used to. So it's important to bear that in mind. I just wanted to add that in because I forgot. Tip number 12 is to make sure you try and go to an onsen while you're in Japan. It's such a classic thing to do in Japan. But the thing about that to notice, if you have any tattoos, that is not permitted in most onsens. So you can cover up your tattoo with a plaster if it's really small, or you'll have to find a tattoo-friendly onsen. I'm not too sure the reasoning behind it, they're just not allowed. So it's important to bear that in mind if you have tattoos. But onsens are amazing. You just walk around naked in a hot bath, and it's very freeing and refreshing, and I really enjoyed it. My husband not so much, but I really enjoyed it, and it's definitely a unique experience to have while you're in Japan. tip number 13 is Google Translate is going to be your best friend. The camera on Google Translate is really, really good at grabbing and capturing everything and changing the words straight to English from all the signs. You've got to remember that all the signs and everything's in Japanese, and sometimes when you go to a foreign country you can kind of guess a few of the letters and a few of the phrases are similar to English, but because the Japanese letters are characters, you really can't guess at all. So Google Translate is really, really helpful for that, and it's the camera setting where you aim your camera at it and it just changes the words right before your eyes. And that's it. I hope you enjoyed it and found it really, really helpful if you're planning your trip to Japan. If you've already been to Japan and you have any more tips to add that I've forgotten, please do add them in the comment section below. And if you have any questions, I'll be happy to help as well. See you in the next one.